All right, let's get back into it. I want to talk really quick. This is like pretty big breaking news, especially because it has to do with your division. So I feel like we can't ignore this. Did you hear the Gegard Mousasi news?
I just saw it this morning. I just saw it right now that, he's signed with Bellator, which is, it's surprising. Of course, he's a guy, been around forever, fantastic fighter, on the cusp of a title shot as well. After I take on Whittaker, if he wins one more fight, in the meantime, he's for sure going to be the next in line. So, who knows? We interviewed him on UFC Tonight, and he did say he was, he was kind of pissed off. He didn't feel he was getting the money he was deserving, and he was a free agent. His contract was expired with the UFC. He'd had all of his fights and wasn't getting the offer he wanted. Obviously, I don't know details, but Bellator have offered him more money. As simple as that, and he's gone where the cash is. So, good for him. I wish him the best. God bless. I like Gegard. Great fighter, great person. I wish him all the best.
Very weird because he was one of the guys that were kind of right in the mix. 5 in a row. The win over Weidman. Weidman, dude, how the fucking tides have turned. That guy was on top of the world for like 3.5 months, it seemed like. And then he just, dude, a few losses in a row, and then that's that. And they're all fucking bad losses. But Weidman has almost become the guy to beat. His last win in the UFC was against White. This is kind of crazy. I've been saying this for a few months now. Bellator is doing some shit over there. The UFC should be concerned with what's happening with Bellator. There are a lot of guys that are top 5 guys that have been shooting over to Bellator, and it's not once the fans aren't really that smart. I got to be honest with you. It's like, no offense to the fans that are listening to this. I'm saying consumers aren't that smart. I shouldn't say fans. People just in general, they kind of just, they believe whatever narrative is kind of given to them. And if the fighters are all talking shit about the UFC and then a bunch of top tier guys from the UFC are jumping ship over to Bellator, it's only going to be a matter of time before the fans are just kind of seeing these big names fighting in a cage. That's all it is. I know the UFC brand is super powerful, but I'm noticing Bellator has a fucking killer lineup right now, and it seems like they're doing things extremely right, and all the fighters are talking about how great Bellator is doing for them, and everyone seems to be pretty upset with what the UFC is doing and how they're only pushing certain guys, the Reebok deal, everything. It seems like there's a lot more, I don't want to say, whatever they say, like disgruntled employees in the UFC.
What do you want me to respond to that, Lewis? Just please entertain me for a second. What would you like me to say there? What would you like me to... Yeah, you're right, or no. Either talk shit about my current employer, or back them up so much that I just look like I'm full of shit. Which one would you prefer?
I would prefer the truth, and then if you don't like it, we can edit it out of the replay.
Listen, at the end of the day, UFC weren't prepared to give Gegard any more money. Bellator offered him some more, and he went where the money is. So good for him, Bellator are making some strides. Good for them. God bless them. Listen, it's great. It's good for the sport. I really do. I don't think why we have to have this narrative, though, all the time of Bellator versus UFC. There's 2 promotions. Good for Bellator. Make as much money as you can. Put on as many fights as you want. Sign whichever guys you want. Same for UFC. Obviously, I fight for UFC, but I don't see it as a big competition between the 2 promotions. Just the way in boxing, you got the IBF, IBO, and your WBO, and all these different organizations. People aren't always going, ooh, the WBO is making real strides. I don't really see why it's a story. The more MMA, the more cash, the more fights, the more exposure, the better. And I wish everyone the best of luck. There you go, Lewis. How's that?
That was great. That was going to be...
Okay, but I do want to go back to something something you mentioned before about Chris Weidman. And you're right, of course. And by the way, this isn't me going on a tirade of abuse against Chris Weidman. This is actually me sticking up for him. Because you're right, he was on top of the world. He was the champ, and he was doing well. And then, as you say, now, what is it? Is it a 3-fight losing streak or 4?
I think it's 3.
It's 3, but if he's fighting Gastelum again soon... If he loses, that could be 4. By the way, I probably see Weidman winning that fight, but who knows? The thing is, that's how hard mixed martial arts is. People don't realize it could happen to anybody. When you get the top 5, top 10 guys, unless you have somebody like John Jones that was so much better than everybody for such a long time, the majority of the guys, they're pretty close to one another. You know what I'm saying? The skill sets, anyone in the top 5 if one guy has a good day and the other guy has a bad day, the guy that has a good day is going to win the fight. That's how close we are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's, unless you're a John Jones or someone like that. I'm not a John Jones. I'm a good fighter. I've got the belt. I've had some good performances. Hopefully I continue to have them. But if you go out there, you have a bad wake up, like Amanda Nunes had, but you still choose to fight, like 99% of people do, or you've got an injury, or you're having doubts, you've got mental problems, maybe you got stress at home. You go out, you have a bad fight, you lose it, you think, fuck it, I'm going to get back in there real fast. Let's turn it round. And the same thing happens. And before you know it, you're in the situation that Chris Weidman is, where he's lost 3 in a row. Maybe people are looking at him like he's washed up, which isn't the case at all. He's still one of the best fighters in the world. He's still stepping in there and fighting the best fighters in the world on a regular basis. So for me, the fact that he's getting back in there again so soon against Gastelum, I've got a lot of respect for him. I wish him the best in the fight. And as I'm just trying to say, it could happen to any of us.
Yeah, he went however many wins in a row. I guess, it was 13 wins in a row, undefeated, and now hasn't won a fight in 3 fights. It's kind of crazy, just like the extreme version of what that is. Like, also just beating Anderson Silva the way he beat Anderson Silva when he beat Anderson Silva. It is probably the biggest falling from grace that we've seen, and it truly isn't a knock on Chris. It's a compliment to the competition. I mean, your division in particular, it's super close. Really everybody. You said it yourself. Even Mousasi now. This is why it's kind of a big deal when somebody that's that highly ranked that could debatably be a UFC champion goes over. That's when it kind of becomes news. There was an interesting Reddit thread that was kind of breaking down like champion versus champion for Bellator versus UFC. And I mean, everyone on Reddit was just like, oh yeah, the UFC guys would just fucking annihilate every champion. If you had to fight the middleweight, it's Rafael Carvalho.
Yeah.
Is their champion?
Yeah.
I don't really know him.
Yeah, no. I've seen him fight a few times. He's okay. He wouldn't be champion in the UFC though.
Yeah. How do you think he would do? How do you think he would do in your division? Do you think he'd even?
No. I mean, I don't want to sit here and do that. I don't want to disparage other organizations and disparage other organizations' champions.
Well, you could just say he'd kill it.
Well, yeah, of course I would. I'm a competitive guy. I think I'm going to win.
No. I'm saying.
No, I know that I would win. I know for a fact. But that's not what this podcast is for. To sit here and talk shit about other professional martial arts.
See, this is what you're doing, though. You're seeing it as negative. You could have easily said Rafael Carvalho would come in and be a world beater and fuck up everybody except for me, and it would have been a compliment.
But I don't think that, do I?
Well, then that's your fault. That's not my fault. I don't know what you're going to say.
That's my opinion. That isn't my opinion. I can't lie. So as my mother always said, if there's nothing good to say nothing. And as we all know, that's how I live my life.
Of course. Yeah, of course. So, look, let me really quickly.
Hey, listen, going forward, can we listen? And this is for the podcast. This isn't to be edited out. Can we just not have this Bellator versus UFC narrative all the time?
Fine.
Because you always want to bring it up on the radio show, on the podcast.
It's compelling.
It's not compelling. There's another organization out there that's got some deep pockets and they're making some moves.
Who?
They're putting on some fights. They're trying to do pay-per-views. They're signing some other guys. It's like, yeah, so what? I don't care. I couldn't care less.
Yeah. All right, look, I understand. I don't give a shit. I don't even watch Bellator. I haven't watched Bellator since Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000, I believe.
You watched that pay-per-view recently like it was the best thing ever.
Did I?
You talked about it a lot.
Maybe I did. I don't know, but I don't really watch, but I don't give a shit. I just think it's pretty compelling. And also, I am a business person, so I think it's very interesting to watch the moves that both organizations make in order to make the fans and the fighters happy, because it's about literally making them both happy. And for me personally, just as a person who kind of enjoys the business side of things, I find it super compelling. And it's all over Reddit, so it's not just me. The fans find it compelling as well, but I understand the position that you're in.
Okay, that's great. It's all over Reddit. Let it stay on Reddit.
Okay, fine. I want to talk about this. I
want to talk about my voice. My voice is driving me crazy. I was in Vegas all weekend. I apologize. My voice is very raspy, very hoarse. And it's driving me crazy.
What were you doing? Did you party?
No. After the fight on Saturday night, I went to bed. I had one can of Heineken, and then went to sleep. Felt great. Felt very happy about myself walking through the airport on Sunday morning, walking through Vegas airport, feeling very, very happy and judgmental at everybody with their hangovers.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I drank still,
because normally you see people in Vegas at the airports, and I'm not going to lie, normally I'm one of those people walking through the airport wanting to die. I sleep as soon as I get on the plane, late night, too much to drink.